You've had quite a public role in addition to your philosophical and legal work in various controversies, abortion, marriage, and so forth. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Was it a response to requests again, or?
That's all response to requests, or to requests and to the situation. I mean, the fact is that the whole of Western civilization took a new turn, not of course without plenty of predisposition to do so, in the 1960s, at the time when I started, becoming a scholar and a teacher, and institutions which had been in place for hundreds and hundreds of years began to be overthrown, one after the other, in the wider culture, in the legal culture, and then challenged often enough within the Christian community or Christian communities. And since it seemed to be the case that not very many people were responding to these challenges articulately, and since it also seemed to be the case that the old, as it were, scholarly responses no longer, as it were, adequately, they didn't provide ready-made answers to new kinds of questions and newly severe and radical criticism. So it seemed to be a sort of situation of all hands to the pumps. And although I strongly believe that Aristotle is right, that young people can't really do these things very well, you've got to have many decades of experience and so forth. Still, young though I was, and conscious of the hazards, at least conscious in principle of the hazards of doing so, I plunged in and put my hand to the pump of various controversies. Some within the Catholic Church, some outside it in the wider culture. So the abortion and euthanasia and so forth out there in the wider culture. Some matters on sex ethics and so forth within the Catholic Church.
Do you think it's a substanding responsibility of scholars, or is it simply the conditions under which you found yourself?
Well, if everything is sort of in place and everything is trundling along, leave it to the specialists. And so if you're a specialist in something, and that's your vocation, then you do it. If you're not, then you don't. Well, I wasn't a specialist in anything much, but I did have some ability to read and the sort of lawyer's ability to think that you can get up a brief, and you can if you really work at it, and to put things together articulately. That's what we spend our time doing, reading long tracts of stuff related to matters of which we've never heard before, and the judge writing that hadn't ever heard before they were plunged into the case and so forth, and absorbing it and relating it to a whole lot of other things of similar character, and then pulling all that together and making an intelligible point, which is not just a summary but a starting off point for further conclusions. So that's what lawyers do, and we can, if we well brought up as lawyers, we can do it well, and so we can jump into philosophical or historical or even theological and historical theological matters at high risk, a lot of high risk of making a mistake. But if it needs to be done by somebody, then the risk of making a mistake is well worth running. You make a mistake, you pick yourself up and start, do it again, or realise you're no good and retire from the field. But